Good morning and welcome to the new episode of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. When any sacred or deemed sacred institution is on the verge of death, it does cause concern. And since the times of Aristotle, as far as Europe is concerned and the whole world is concerned, but in reality much older, democracy has been a revered form of governance. Of course, Aristotle was the first person to give the cyclical nature of this mode of governance. And it started with religious autocracy, oligarchy, leading to democracy, and then back to the orthodoxy and monarchy. In other words, it can be monarchy, can be dictatorship, it can be of a hereditary king or an elected, or a person come to power through a coup. But the avowed goal of the world has been democracy. It feeds the imagination of people. It makes the people feel that the self-governance is the best governance. Government by the people, of the people, for the people. Whatever its defects, give you a sense of achievement. But why is it that this mirage of democracy is now vanishing all over the world? Even the so-called champions like USA, even India, the authoritarian trends are very much visible. I'm not saying there's something wrong. Maybe that's a need of the time. But the question is, and it's becoming much more matter of concern and urgency, that why there is a dipping confidence in democracy. And this dipping confidence is marked with citizens' frustration with the government, if you have seen it. And frustration is with corruption and incompetence. People see and often view pure democracy as incompetent. Still more concerning is the fact that this dissatisfaction is more evident with the younger people. They are least satisfied with democracy. They are much more disaffected than the previous generations of the same age. Still more worrying are the facts of the survey recently conducted. In the Democracy Report 2020, which is completed last year, Sweden's We Dem Institute noted, for example, that India has lost its status as democracy. It ranked India below Sierra Leone, below Guatemala, below Hungary. That's the state of India. But do we think we have democracy in Canada? No. 33% votes elect the government in power and make it work. Where is the concept of the rule of the majority? And where the majority rules, for example, in India, we blame it on majoritarianism. Of course, democracy is majoritarianism. Because if the majority is to be sacrificed as a minority, then it's not democracy. So things are serious. And not since 1920s and 1930s has democracy faced so much trouble. And that's why you see even in the old times, the city-states of Greece fell prey to the outsiders because democracy basically become incompetent or are controlled by mafia, criminal gangs, as happening in India. So this period has seen the destruction of the most parliamentary democracies since 1920s. Only 11 have survived. And after that, political scientists have pointed out that democracies have wilted in two connected ways. Now, some have suffered sudden deaths in the puffs of smoke and a rat-tat of gunfire. But death by cuts is more common. Democracies democracy murder, or democide if I can call it, I'm coining this word democide, is a very slow motion and messy process. Wild rumors, talk of conspiracies flourish. Government takes any action and it's rumored. India's farm protest for the last 10 months now. For example, I'm just giving an example. They are thought to be on the some part, but there's a conspiracy of the opposition, and by others a conspiracy by the government to finish up reforms. So these talks of conspiracy are demonical and destructive of democracy. Street protests, out of control violence as a result thereof, emergency rule is enforced, and things eventually come to a boil. That happened in 1975 in India, and who knows? It has happened in Hungary, it had happened in Austria, and Austria was my bedrock of democracy. So as the government totters, the army moves in from its barracks on the streets. The purpose is to quell disorder, but then the army says, well, if we are moving and maintaining order, why should we not rule ourselves? So the commanders develop a desire to control, to govern. And who doesn't want power? So if they want power, why should they not have it? And then it can be either one strong man coming up or a group of people coming up. It can be troika, it can be 4 people, it can be 5 people. During the past generation, if you see, around 3/4 of democracy have met their end in these ways. The military coup against the elected government of Egypt in 2013, Thailand 2014, Myanmar and Tunisia in 2021 are the obvious examples. But are they the only one? No. As a matter of fact, they are just some of them. And you cannot say that they are the only ones. Democracy is much more than pressing a button or marking a ballot paper. Let's not forget that. It goes beyond the mathematical certainty of election result and majority rule. Real democracy is not reducible to lawful rule through independent courts or attending local public meetings and watching news stories. Democracy is a way of life, and the politicians forget that. Democracy really means freedom from hunger, humiliation, violence. It's a public disgust for the callous employers who mistreat workers, paid a pittance for unblocking stinking sewers. Democracy is a way of saying no to every form of human indignity. It's a respect for women, tenderness for children, access to jobs that bring satisfaction, and sufficient rewards. In a real democracy, so cities are not forced to travel in buses and trains like livestock, wade through the dirty water, or they are not made to breathe the poisonous air. Democracy is a public and private respect for different ways of living. Now, from that point of view, Bhutan, if formerly a complete feudal lordship, now a constitutional monarchy, is perfect democracy. But we don't consider that a democracy. In a healthy democracy, these things would not happen which happen, say, in USA, that the police is defunded. Because responsibility has to be enforced at times. So the rejection of the dogma that things cannot change because they're naturally fixed in stone also applies to democracy, and that's not correct. So change would happen. Democracy is basically insubordination. Insubordination to the principle of life. The refusal to put up with everyday form of snobbery and toady, idolatry, lying bull is bullshit. And the democracies are becoming bullshit. You would say they are fine principles, but then the work has to be done, yes. Now the constitutional aspect comes into being. When a constitution promises the citizens justice, liberty, and equality, the three main pillars of democracy justice, liberty, equality, the splintering and shattering of social life induces a sense of legal powerlessness. How costly justice is, how time consuming justice is. It should be instant. Now, the result is the judiciary, which is supposed to be custodian of freedom, becomes vulnerable to cynicism, political meddling, and state capture. Then, coupled with the economic aspect, massive imbalance of trade, chronic violence, famine, unevenly distributed life chances make a mockery of the ethical principle that in a democracy people can live as citizens, as partners of equal social worth. All that talk of equality is absolutely hogwash. Sabka vikas, sabka saath, as the Indian government says, everybody's development. Where is everybody's development? It cannot be. Then, coupled with it, look at the micro level. We talk of equality, we talk of the gender equality. Have we been able to finish off the domestic violence anywhere in the world? Whether it's advanced countries like Canada, USA, upcoming great countries like India, and third level countries anywhere, domestic violence, rotten health care, widespread feeling of social unhappiness, shortages of food, housing destroy people's dignity. Look at the number of houseless people here in Canada. Despite all that social canopy, you can go and see the number of beggars. We call them beggars, here they call them panhandlers. That's the only difference. So indignity is a form of generalized social violence. And what sort of self-governance is there if the social violence is there? It kills the spirit and substance of democracy. When famished children cry themselves to sleep, when millions of women feel unsafe, they are groped, they are at the mercy of their bosses, and the multitude of workers living on slave wages are forced to flee for their lives in medical emergency. That's not democracy. Now, agree that the citizens have ability to strike back, to deliver millions of mutinies against the rich and the powerful. But then that's not basically democracy. That's insurrection, that's mutiny. That is anarchy. And that's what's going to happen. Ultimately, when the social injustices increase, they result in so much of pressure being built up that the pressure cooker in which you are cooking this society bursts. The brute fact is that the social indignity undermines the common citizens' capacity to take an active interest in public affairs. How many people are really interested in elections? They go by the party, not by the individual. 73% of the Indian legislators are having criminal background. Are you aware that even the recently political figure in news, Navjot Sidhu, the famous cricketer, is in fact a convicted criminal? He killed a person in a road rage. He was sentenced to 5 years regular imprisonment. Then Supreme Court ultimately, maybe because of the aura that comes up with being a political leader and a cricketer, reduced it to a mere fine. But conviction is a conviction. So when those people become the premiers, in UP, the former chief minister, the leader of the party, was guilty of 19 murders. 19. Mulayam Singh Yadav I'm talking about. And this is not there. It's all over. Citizens are forced to put up with the state and corporate restrictions on the basic public freedom. And these restrictions are not limitations, they are constraints, they are chains. Basically, you are just being taken for granted. And then the citizens get used to big money, technology, surveillance, preventive detentions, and police killings. So this is a two-way traffic. On the one side, police is blamed for killing unnecessarily. On the other side, police is blamed for not taking action. So these are both the sins of omission and commission. But the scandal doesn't end here. When the millions of citizens are daily victimized by social indignity, and the powerful are granted licenses to rule arbitrarily, is shocking. In USA, for example, it's 22 families who rule the rules. In Canada, it's about 8 families. Though there are 44 billionaires today in Canada, but it's basically 8 families which are really the deciding factors. In India, there are about 10 families. So millions of the humiliated people are the sitting targets. And some at the bottom and many in the middle and upper middle class turn their back on the public affairs. They don't care. And when the people do not care, it's not democracy. They bellyache in unison against politicians and politics. We go to any drag room, people will be fulminating, talking about the corruption. But do they do anything? The result is complacency, cynical indifference, and that breeds a voluntary servitude, slavery. Mentally they are slaves. They say they are free, but no, they are not. They are constrained, they are chained mentally, physically, and monetarily. So the disgruntled then begin to yearn for the political redeemers and the steel-fisted government. They ultimately say, whoa, as you might have seen the people of the former era, even my parents. Well, the British government was better than this government. At least there was justice. Because they were outsiders, and for them there were no political affiliations. They were not dependent on them. Why in Pakistan even now, army rule is preferred to the political rule and the democratic rule. They say no, at least they were equal as far as the dispensation of justice was concerned. So when this happens, demagoguery comes into season. Citizen disempowerment encourages boasting and bluster among the powerful people, and they don't care about the niceties of public dignity, integrity, or power sharing. They grow convinced that they can turn lead into gold, or as one Indian leader said, potatoes into gold. But then this pride, this hubris comes at a cost. When democratically elected governments cease to be held accountable by society, weakened by poor health, low morale, unemployment, then demagogues are prone to blindness, mental, and ineptitude. They take foolish decisions and incompetent decisions that reinforce. Now, then what happens? This is again, I framed this word, polygarchy. It's an oligarchy of different groups, so it's polygarchy. They decide the group. This 22 families in USA, 10 families in India. They ultimately decide what should be done. They are who exercise power in government ministries, corporations, public and private projects. And they are not subject to, no, the beauty is the visible leaders are subject to the rules of public accountability. But the driving force behind them, they are not subject to any accountability. They are like weeds in an untended garden. Corruption flourishes there. Almost everybody must pay bribes to access the public services. The bribes need not only be in money, they can be in various shapes. And that's what happens. And finally, in the absence of redistributive public welfare activities, granting sufficient food, shelter, security, education, health, democracy becomes a mere fraud, a facade, a hijab. Elections still happen, and there's abundant talk of the people. But the democracy begins to resemble a fancy mask worn by the wealthy political predators. Self-government is not gone. Then comes the strong arm ruled by the rich and the powerful. And the strong arm may be either the organized police and the army or the unorganized private armies. And the powerful polygraph in the name of people's follow. Then they are cheer-led by the lapdog media. Phantom democracy becomes a reality. And society is subjected and subordinated to the state. That is the end of democracy. People are expected to behave as loyal citizens or they suffer the consequences. And a new type of top-down rule called despotism triumphs. Coupled with this is the interference by the judiciary. And judiciary is a double-edged weapon. It is supposed to protect the people, it doesn't. You see, when the judges see that they are there for the tenure, they cannot be removed easily, except by impeachment. So then the concept of power starts to creep in them. They can issue an order that the executive would have to follow. And then they try to invade the part which is not meant for them. Unwanted incursions in the field of executive and at times legislatures are there. And that is the way that democracies die. And they make an exit unsung, unwept, unhonored. Of course, after a few decades, people think, well, what have we done? Because of our short-sightedness, we have destroyed the golden dream. But the golden dream has become a nightmare. And that is why either the democracy is replaced by dictatorship or it becomes a parody of democracy. Wide awake, socially virile, strong people that are required do not exist. They exist, but in a small minority. Because the main concern is meeting two ends a day problem, a sustenance. And the organized criminals and politics ensure that you're more concerned with having 2 meals a day and a house and be content with that so that they can exploit you and continue to rule on you in the name of democracy, which, as I said, is just a facade. It is a dead body waiting to be buried. And it would be buried today or tomorrow. And this is the way the democracies die. Ineptitude, corruption, social inequalities, social injustice, and all sorts of evils that emerge in the name of social welfare, care of the people, and democracy. Think about it. Your future generations depend on this. Thank you.